Today I want to share with you 5 things to do while you're waiting to start homesteading. If you have a desire to start homesteading, but you're just not in a position to do that right at this particular point in time, there are some skills that you can be working on and some things that you can be doing while you're in that waiting season. I want to share with you 5 things that I think could be very helpful while you're in that waiting season. The first thing is to start growing your own food. This is something that you can do no matter where you're living. There was a point in time when I lived in town, and my first house was basically a situation where I was renting a couple of rooms, and I didn't have the house to myself. I didn't have the space to myself. I started growing food in a planter box, and I was able to put that on the sidewalk. And inside of that, I had lettuce, bush green beans. I think I tried doing maybe some of the little mini carrots. I had a few different things that I was growing in that window box. And then in a larger pot, I was able to put a couple of tomato plants. And that was my first container garden, I guess you could say, where I was really working on trying to learn how to grow things in a small space in containers. Then eventually I was able to upgrade to raised beds and still continued on with some of the containers, but I had different things in raised beds and started learning how to do espalier trees and some berries so that I had more variety, even though I was in a small space. So learning to grow food in whatever area you're in is a skill that you can work on developing right now, no matter where you're at, whether that's putting in some raised beds or starting to learn how to grow things in containers. It really helps you to be mindful of what kinds of seeds you're buying. You can start looking at weather patterns, sunlight, and how that's changing throughout the seasons. All of these things are going to serve you well in the future, no matter where you start your homestead. The second thing you can do is learn to preserve food. This is something that you can do no matter where you're at. If you have access to locally grown food, you could check in with some of your local farms, and you might be able to purchase produce from there that you can learn how to preserve. You may have friends or family who have large gardens, and maybe you could work out some sort of a deal with them where you could exchange some time helping around the garden in order to get some of their excess produce. And you could use all of these things to start learning how to preserve food. Anything that you can do now is going to be very helpful for the future. Learning how to do some canning or dehydrating, freezing different things. All of those food preservation skills will serve you well as you move to your own homestead. The third area would be to start a pantry. This is something you can do no matter where you're at, and something that we'll be talking about a lot here on the channel, especially as we're going into the next couple of months, where we will be participating in the Pantry Challenge. And during that time, it just gives us a lot of opportunity to talk specifically about the pantry and what we're doing with food that has been stored in the pantry. Also, some different ideas for how you are storing things, and just a wide variety of things related to the pantry. But this is a great time to begin building up your pantry, thinking about what needs to be included, thinking about how you could organize it or store it. And that's not something that requires you to be out on the homestead. The reality is, if you are homesteading, you're probably not living right in town, although there are urban homesteads, and I kind of developed my last home into, as much as I could, kind of an urban homestead, but it's not the same as being out on property. I now live farther from town, and it's nice to have some things on hand, and it really is important to have my pantry in working order. So this is a great time to learn about buying things in bulk, learning how to use those items, and starting to build your knowledge in that area. The fourth area is learning to cook from scratch. And while this may seem like just something that everyone does, I have found that that's not necessarily the case. I know from experience, when you live in town, there's a lot of access to convenience foods, whether that's stopping by the grocery store and grabbing convenience foods that are already mostly prepared from the deli or produce area, or whether that's stopping for fast food because it's right on the way home. The access is right there in your face. And so it's easy to get in the habit of reaching for those convenience items or stopping for those convenience items rather than cooking from scratch. So this might be a skill that you have, but you haven't maybe been brushing up on, or it might be something that you just haven't had experience with. And so this is a great time to learn how to go ahead and cook from scratch, learn how to use items from your pantry so that when you are preserving your food or growing your garden, you know how to use the things that you're producing. It's one thing to know how to produce the food, but it's another thing to know how to use it after it's been preserved and produced. And so that's a skill that you could work on during this time. Experiment with some new recipes. Learn what kinds of foods are kind of your go-tos. Learn what you want to have more of in the pantry so that you always have those items on hand. This is just a great time to build up that skill. And the fifth thing you can do is learn new things. This is a wonderful opportunity to learn as much as you can about the things that you want to be doing on the homestead. And I understand that there's a difference between learning something and then applying that knowledge. They are two very different things. However, if you can use this time to take in the knowledge and learn things, then when you get out on the homestead, you can start applying some of the things that you've learned and see what works for you and what doesn't work for you depending on where you're at. We can learn from many different people in many different places. And even if you live in the same grow zone as someone or the same general area as someone, every area and place has kind of their own little nuance and special thing that you're going to have to learn, whether that's a small microclimate or whether you maybe have differences in sun patterns or different things that you're going to have to learn and adjust to. You've got different terrain in different places. So it doesn't always look the same as what you've learned, but if you can take in knowledge during this time, it'll give you at least a foundation to be able to work off of once you get out to your homesteading spot. So different ways you can do that. Obviously, reading books is a great way. You could watch videos. YouTube has a wealth of information from various sources, and it's always nice to hear from different people because everyone's going to have their own unique spin and take on different things. So you can take in information that way. And of course, talking to experts. Find people in your area or in the area that you want to go to that are gardening or homesteading in that area, and see about some of the things that are working well for them, and let them take some time to share their knowledge as well. And that's a great way to learn new things. I hope that you have found these 5 ideas helpful. If you did, please click like, and I would love to have you subscribe and be part of our community here at Blooming Wildwood Homestead. I can't wait to see you back here in the next video. Until next time, bye everyone.